So I got to ask you, right? And just going straight in. And I hear you talk about this all the time, but I just want my people, the culture, everybody that's tuned in now, to hear your words on this. Are leaders born or are they made?
They're made. They're
They're
made.
made.
It's Jeezy, it's interesting because back in 1991, I wrote a book called Developing the Leader Within You. And up until that time, if you go back even the 1980s into a bookstore, you wouldn't even find leadership books. You'd find management books.
Right.
But what happened is the pace of life increased so much that no longer could we manage it. We had to get in front of it and start leading. And so I wrote a book called Developing the Leader Within You. And it was the first book that basically said you can develop yourself as a leader. You can grow yourself.
Right.
And it was a breakthrough book. It's really the book that kind of put me on the leadership map. And I tell people all the time that leadership is influence. That's what it is, nothing more, nothing less. And so if you can increase your influence, which you can, and influence more people, you can grow and develop your leadership. So
skills.
I think they're made. I think
Wow.
leaders are made.
That's great. That's great. So and people that are just tuning in and understanding who you are and what you do, and which is amazing. And you go around the world and you lead other leaders. And what type of mindset do you fly into a whole nother country, a continent, to sit down and talk to somebody who actually leads that continent because in my culture, where I'm from, if you're the leader of your neighborhood, if you're the leader of your community, if you're the leader of your family, it's almost seen as a weakness to talk to another person about what you should do as a leader. So I just feel like that's just unique that you can fly to a whole nother place and somebody wants to sit down and talk to you about how could they be a better leader for their people. How does that work?
Well, it didn't work that way in the beginning. I had to lead my own family and lead my own self. So we always start small.
Right.
Somebody the other day wanted to know. They said, "Talk to me about branding myself." And I said, "Well, the first thing I'd say is just get good. Just get good. If you're good, any brand will work. And so I just started teaching leadership in small groups. And here's the key. If what you do brings value to people and adds value to them, in other words, when they're done reading your book or they're done hearing you talk, and they look at themselves and say, "I'm a better person because of this. This was a good investment." If you're constantly positively adding value to people, you'll get what I call legs to your leadership. In other words, there'll be other people that will run to other people and say, "You really need to read a John Maxwell book." Or you really need to, get a digital product by John Maxwell, or you need to hear him talk. And so eventually I got the opportunity. It just the circle kept expanding and getting better. And then I had the opportunity to travel internationally. In fact, I have a nonprofit organization now that we go into countries with the invitation of just presidents of the countries. We don't even come into the country until either the prime minister or the president asks us to come in.
Wow.
And we teach leadership values. And what we do is we teach values that people can learn, apply to their life, and make them better people, more valuable to each other. And so now there's a queue, a line of 22 presidents. We're in 3 countries. We're going to 2 more countries. But there's 22 countries with presidents saying, "We want you to come in and teach values." But it's because what we do works. It helps people.
Right.
And if it works, guess what? It works.
It works.
And if it doesn't work,
right.
And if it doesn't work, Jeezy, there's not one thing I can do to expand my influence.
Right.
You very quickly find out who the players are and who the pretenders are.
Right. Well, I like that. Players and who the pretenders are. So you actually go into these countries and you do leadership seminars for the people, or actually the leaders that lead the country?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Next week we're in Guatemala. I'll be with the president of Guatemala. I'll be with the cabinet. I'll be with the Supreme Court. I'll speak to Congress.
Wow.
I'll speak to the top companies, Pepsi.
Wow.
I'll speak to their CEO and their company. So what we do is we go in. and it's called the waterfall effect. And waterfall is the water comes top down, but it can refresh and bless everybody, but it has to begin at the top. Leadership influence flows down, and
leadership influence flows down, and
always.
it comes from the top.
Yes,
Okay.
and so they give us the invitation to come in. But then what the key is, they have to buy in themselves to it. And we do this in what we call transformation tables, small groups of 6 or 8. And the leaders have to be a part of it too. One of the things we found, I have several companies, but one of the companies I have, we do corporate training. And what we found is the success of corporate training is totally determined, not on which program we use. We have a lot of good programs, but it's totally determined on, are the leaders of those companies in the classes and learning too, or are they just sending their people to them? And if a leader sends his or her people to the class, but they don't attend, they're sending a message to the people that's important for you, but that's not important for us. But the moment that the leader gets involved, the waterfall effect,
from the
top down, then all of a sudden it becomes very successful.
Wow. What's the most important role of a leader? If you had to sum it up, like I consider myself, like when I came into my own, I had hundreds of people that would follow me around the world, personally, like people that was like really believed in what I was doing. And I think for, a moment that I knew where I was going, but I didn't understand how to keep everybody engaged and to want what I want, or what we was trying to achieve together. And it caused a lot of disarray and a lot of, if everybody don't have the same focus or the same target, things kind of go awry. So what would you say the most important role of a leader is?
It's a great question, Jeezy. And what happened when you gave yourself as an illustration is what you found is when you started doing your work, you got influence very quickly. A lot of people were listening to you, and so you gained influence, but you didn't know what to do with that influence.
Correct. There you go.
And that's true, I think, with almost everybody. When they see we're influencing each other, but then we say, well, now what do I do? And so the role of a leader is to, first of all, always put the people first. If I put myself first and I take the people that I influence and say, they're here to serve me, they're here to make my life better, then I become a very self-absorbed leader. And see, the value of leadership is that it adds value to people. That's the value of leadership. And so a leader, really, the role of a leader is to, first of all, have a real sense of humility.
Right.
And understanding that if I have gifts and if I have abilities, they're not for me.
Wow.
They're for me to share it with others. And so the important role is for a leader to immediately understand his or her responsibility to the people, and that I am a steward of my gifts and that I am to add value to the people that I lead. So what's my role? My first role is, how do I take my influence, my charisma, my abilities, all these people that are following me, and how do I add value to them so that they can be better people? And that's the first thing to decide. A lot of times leaders say, well, I got to determine where I want to go. Right. Well, no, I think you really have to determine why you want to lead. Do I want to lead for myself? You see, if leadership is for me, Jeezy, then honestly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to manipulate people. Because I want them to serve. Well, and manipulation is always wrong. Always. It's always wrong. Because when I manipulate people, I move them for my personal advantage. That's not right.
Right.
Now, leaders move people, but they should move them for
personal advantage.
And there's a world of difference between that. So when people say, well, if I've got influence now, what should I do with it? The first thing you should do with it is determine that you're going to take whatever that influence and whatever those gifts are, and you're going to use them to add value to people intentionally.
Wow.
And if I could settle that issue at the beginning of my leadership, that'll keep me from getting into trouble
Right.
when I get a lot of power.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and we see a lot of leaders kind of implode because they just don't have they just didn't make the right decision when they started off to serve the people and put the people first.
We're going to take a quick break, but stick around because there's so much more to unpack with John Maxwell when Worth the Conversation returns right here on Fox Soul.